Hey you dorks, this is Gunnar Hansen, Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and you are listening to The Dorkening.
Hi, I'm Brian Johnson, and although you probably accidentally stumbled across it and have no idea why you're watching it, you are in fact watching The Dorkening.
Hello, this is Tom Kenny, voice actor, the voice of the Ice King on Adventure Time, and SpongeBob SquarePants. Ah, meow. Oh, Gary the Snail too. Hey, guess what you're filling your eye holes and ear holes with? The Dorkening! Oh, I love The Dorkening. Very popular in Ooh. And Bikini Bottom.
Hi, I'm Lou Ferrigno. You're watching The Dorkening. And you know what? You don't like me when I get angry, so don't get me angry. You better keep watching The Dorkening.
Hey guys, this is Felissa Rose, and you're watching The Dorkening.
Hey guys, it's Courtney Palm. We're shooting Death House, and you're watching The Dorkening.
This is Anthony Michael Hall, and you're watching The Dorkening. Stay tuned, my friend's going to show you what entertainment's all about, baby.
The Dorkening.
The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Rise and shine, my sinners. When Father Evil starts his day, he gets a little deadly. Deadly Grounds coffee has the richest, smoothest flavor you'll find anywhere. It's sinfully delicious. Once you go deadly, you never go back. Order yours at getdeadly.com. Coffee's so good, it's scary.
Happy Tuesday, all. Welcome to Splash Pages, the comic book club. Today is going to be an awesome show. Not only do we have an amazing guest, we're going to be traveling back to 1985 to talk about an utterly amazing series as well. But as always, we have the Velvet Joker. How's it going, sir?
Great. Glad to be here tonight. Glad to see everyone. Happy to have our great and fantastic guest with some verse knowledge of the world of comics.
Exactly. Drew, how's it going, sir?
Doing good. Just had to bring this out of storage. I'm super excited for this guest. And fun fact, the person we're talking about, Mark Gruenwald, had a Captain America replica that he owned, and that's the same replica that is now currently owned by Stephen Colbert. So if you thought that was cool, stick around. It gets even cooler.
Awesome. Chris, how's it going, sir?
Hey. What's up?
Chris, would you like to introduce our awesome guest?
Yes, the guest for tonight's show is Catherine Schuller, the widow of Mark Gruenwald, writer of Marvel Comics pantheon of books such as the Squadron Supreme and the official handbook to the Marvel Universe, but most notably, of course, one of the longest runs on Captain America. Thank you for coming on the show with us, Catherine.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. My favorite topic.
Catherine, you have I think it's coming up soon. Isn't there like a Mark Gruenwald scholarship contest or something in his hometown that's coming up very soon?
Yeah, it's our season 3. It's our third year we're going into. They've created in his hometown of Oshkosh, Wisconsin, the Mark Gruenwald Comic Book Creation Challenge. So it's sponsored by the Oshkosh Public Library, by the Literacy Council of Oshkosh, of Wisconsin, actually, the Wisconsin Literacy Council. The Aeronautics Flight, EAA, is out there on board with it too, and also Zeroni's Pizza. They've named a pizza after Mark. Tom DeFalco said there's no higher honor than having a pizza named after you. So, and it's red, white, and blue because it's Captain America. So it's a little bit of steak, blueberry sauce, and white mozzarella. So it's red, white, and blue.
Interesting.
Okay. That
kicks off this week, actually. So all the kids are going to pick up their supplies. They're all donated by the Literacy Council, and they pick up their supplies. And they will. There's about 6 different categories, age categories, ranging from age 7 to 70. Families can do it together. There's a group 1, 2, and if anybody wants more information on it, there's a Facebook page. It's the Mark Gruenwald Comic Book Creation Challenge. And it's only open to the people in Oshkosh and Wisconsin right now. They may make it nationwide, but we've had a lot of great success with it. And Onomatopoeia Productions is my partner, and he is a printer, publisher, and a huge fan of Mark's, and he publishes everyone's comics at the end of the contest, so they get a hard copy of what they've submitted, which is a great prize.
Awesome.
Dan Horton. Love you, Dan.
Leo, do we have it in our budget for a road trip to Wisconsin? Because this sounds great.
I know. I think so. I think we have to save our pennies, because the actual September 28th is when the contest is over and announced, and the winners are announced. So I always try and go out, and we have workshops throughout the summer. It's great. It's just a great contest. I know Mark would love it, and they've named September 28th Mark Gruenwald Day in Oshkosh.
Oh, cool. Nice. Hey, Leo,
Yeah.
take the picture I just sent you in the group and post it up.
Okay, give me a minute. Keep the conversation going while I find that.
Absolutely. Now, Catherine, when Mark was working on a lot of his stuff, did he ever bounce story ideas off you?
It's just
we bounce ideas off of anybody. Yes. And every time I said something, he would be, it's been done. It's been done. It's been done. So, he always wanted to do something that no one thought of in comic books before. So when he finished, writing every night, he wrote. After he came back from Marvel, he wrote Quasar. He wrote Captain America. He always had a story due. But, one night he came out, he was gleeful. He was actually so giddy, and he was like pumping his fist in the air saying, I've done something no one's done in comic books before. So I just know that he was always pushing himself to do, where no one's been and to do what no one's thought of before. So we actually got into a car accident one time when I was giving him story ideas, and he was like, nope, been done. Bam, right to the back of the fender. I was like, oh my God, now we've got a lawsuit on our hands because it was a rented car, and they sued us for $1 million. And I was like, I hope that was $1 million idea. Yeah, so the answer is always and forever. And I, maybe I came up with a few things, but I think the one thing that I did contribute was I had my niece come and live with us for our first year of marriage, which was 92. So he thought up the character from her and me as an amalgam called Free Spirit. So Free Spirit was actually Kathy Webster, and her name was Kathy Weber. I was Catherine Schuller. So it was a great amalgam of that. And her tagline was hate men, hunt men, hurt men. So Free Spirit was created during the time when my niece was staying with us. So he put lots of people into stories. He always that was his own little private joke way to weave different elements from his life into what he thought was going to be the next, character that he wanted to think of. I mean, probably thought up about 145 characters. So he used to come to my fashion shows and he'd sit there with a sketch pad and, he would design costumes while he was watching my show, because it was in the 80s and the 90s, and there were, big, it was super heroic fashions in those days. So he was constantly gleaning ideas from anywhere he went, everywhere he went. He said everything is tax deductible. So he's just concerts, whatever, movies, everything fed into his imagination. And I really take a lot from all that. And I try and do my Runway the Real Way and the event production business I have like the bullpen, so that I take ideas. I'm not the authority. The buck doesn't stop with me. I kind of filter it and process it. I know where it needs to go, like he did, but I take ideas wherever I can find them, and I gladly and encourage people's engagement. And that's what Mark did so well. I mean, he made you do things that you would never, ever think you could do. And he would just ask you, and you couldn't say no. Somehow you'd come up and figure it out.
Right. I imagine you guys fed off each other's creativity.
Yeah, and I mean, I wasn't a stalking fan type, but I was a theater person and a fashion person, and he included me into plenty of Comic-Con sketches. If I wasn't videotaping him, I was in the sketch and writing it, and he in those days the breakout sessions and the comic book summits and all that were really a lot to do with the guys behind the scenes having fun with the fans. So it was a great, it wasn't people lining up for autographs. It was, summit, sessions with all of the guys from Marvel. Being stupid, being silly. He said, I have to teach people how to disrespect comics in a respectful way. So he would have things like bobbing for comics. So you would, and it was the more humiliating, the better. So, you would have a pile of comics and people had to not using their hands, using just their mouths, bob for comics. So they would have to, like bobbing for apples. They would rip into these things and salivate all over them. And I was like, Mark, those are collectible. He's like, you have to teach everybody that, it's not so precious. So he always found a way to deface the comic somehow. We had tape heads where you put a piece of tape on the comic and you ran with it with a tape dispenser and see how far you could go. So you have a race. And, it was just so silly. And the fans just loved, hanging out with the people that were behind the scenes writing everything they were reading and playing with them at those Comic Cons. It was so much fun.
Sounds like an exciting time. It sounds like a really exciting time. And personally, for me, the way your husband affected me during the storyline that we're actually going to discuss tonight, which is, of course, the Squadron Supreme, the character of, excuse me. See, I'm getting choked up, even nervous.
You're doing great, man.
All right, I apologize. Now, of course, I'm blanking out. Hyperion, I apologize.
Hyperion, yeah.
Yeah, I know that he didn't originate that character. That was Roy Thomas and Sal Buscema. But the way that he wrote the character, that he was just this sort of Superman that was so noble, and his intentions were good, but he was flawed. And that's actually going to be, I started a number of years ago, a power tattoo of powered characters that meant a lot to me. And Hyperion's going to be my next one this summer. So I just want you to know that's how he personally affected me as a fan. And I appreciate him. And I appreciate you and giving your time to us tonight and giving us all your insights. Thank you so much.
Well, I was I was his wife, and I was his partner, in anything he wanted to do. But he was the locomotive. I was merely the tracks. I couldn't. I had to facilitate. There was just no way that I couldn't. And he was just so much freaking fun. I mean, God, the guy was so fun. His mind was just always going and he was funny too. He was a comedian at heart. So that's what he liked. He had a comedy group. I had a comedy group. He had cheap laughs. I had the nerve. And, we were kind of schooled on that, National Lampoon kind of humor and, the R. Crumb and all those characters all shaped our lives so much. And he always believed in no one being completely pure and no one being any one dimension. So that the fact that Hyperion had so many dark moments where he couldn't, he sometimes didn't match up to how he looked and how he felt on the outside. That was really, that's kind of what Marvel's known for too. Even Captain America, when Mark took it over, they were going to cancel that book, and he made it relevant. He said it was really hard to make a Patriot not such a rah-rah kind of guy. So he created a character that was fraught with layers of, complex dilemmas. And I think that is really to his credit, because he was like that. He had this free-floating depression. He said he was compelled to write. He had a compulsion to write. And he felt like he owed his fans the very best that he could deliver. And he really wrote for the fans. He answered every fan mail, every piece of fan mail that he got. He it was comics 24/7. If he wasn't dealing with the fans, he was dealing with the characters. If he wasn't dealing with the people at Marvel who he worked with. When I first started dating him, I went to his apartment. He had photos of everyone he worked with at Marvel framed on his wall in 8x10 frames that were exactly the same. And he had 3 walls of everyone that he worked with at Marvel on his walls in his apartment. Who does that? I mean, most people want to get away from the people they work with at 5 o'clock. It's like, they want to forget them. But that was his universe. That was the characters that he worked with, that he loved. And, he was Marvel Entertainment Group, Mark Eugene Gruenwald, MEG. He said, I am Marvel. I have the same initials. And it was just kind of ironic and, a real display of the fact that he was truly meant to be what he was doing. I mean, he was a fan turned pro, but he was destined to be a comic book guy. It's all he lived and breathed, and I think it showed. I mean, he knew that comics were his life, and it was his form of entertainment that he believed in, and that was the only form of entertainment he thought that was of value to him. So it was interesting to watch him operate. To really operate is what how he worked on so many different levels. So yeah, what a guy, right? Whew.
What can you say to that?
Yeah.
He's really an amazing kind of man and amazing artist and an amazing contributor to, he said you have to leave the profession better than you found it. And I think that's a great way to operate. You know, I'm trying to do that with the plus size industry, with the fashion world, and I'm into sustainability now. And, you know, is it save the planet? Is it, you know, whatever, climate change? I'm down for it. And I really feel like your profession can really inform, motivate, and inspire others. And I try and take that legacy very seriously and use what I learned from him in my daily life too, with the people I come into contact with.
That's amazing.
What have your thoughts and opinions been on his you know, one of his three biggest creations being John Walker? What did you think of the TV show and how they portrayed his Captain America jackassness?
I think they did such a great job, because you're not supposed to like this guy. I know the hashtag not my cap. Duh. I mean, they made him look like the guy from Up. You know, they made him like he played it so well. I mean, John Walker, U.S. agent, he took on the role of Captain America, and just that whole episode where, you know, the credits were him, you know, zipping that garment bag, and it was a close-up of the zipper slowly going down. It's like, what is that zipper? Is that, you know, and it was the garment bag that held the Captain America costume, you know, the outfit, the uniform, and it was just so well done. I mean, those moments that, you know, they zero in on that are the emotional moments, I just think they did an amazing job. And I also think that making Julia Louis Dreyfus, the Contessa, who has to tell John Walker that he has value, it was kind of ironic, because he loved Julia Dreyfus because of Seinfeld. He loved Elaine. He loved that character. And I think it's kind of funny that, you know, that she's the one who tells John Walker that he's got value. And it's kind of like Owen Wilson playing Mark Gruenwald in the Time Variance Authority. Right. I mean, I think he'd get a kick that Owen Wilson is playing him.
Yeah.
We had a couple questions come in. First, Jeremy Courtney said Squadron Supreme. We'll be talking about that a little bit later. And he asked, what do you feel was Mark's greatest contribution to comics?
The fact that he was a continuity cop, that he cared about the continuity of each character, about the Marvel Universe. He had all those scenarios in his head, and I think that his greatest achievement was that official handbook of the Marvel Universe. I mean, that shows Mark at his core. You know, he loved that nerdy minutia about all the characters, and he said, I bet the fans are going to love the front, back, and side, and all of the characteristics and everything that makes them, you know, so interesting, and go in depth with it. And I think, you know, to translate that into what the greatest work was he did was probably the official handbook. And I just say that because it's just been a manual for people to refer to if you're going to put that character in something, what that character's about. And so I say, you know, he called himself the custodian of the Marvel Universe.
Didn't they send you one who said?
Come up with a broom where everybody's putting their garbage around. I'm just going to put the broom behind them.
Didn't they send you one of those giant new Marvel handbook omnibuses you said?
Oh my God! Yes, it's a great paperweight. But I'm doing this cosplay runway, so I'm using it kind of as a reference because if people want to play different characters, we can just go right to the Marvel Universe handbook and see what some of the characters were that they may want to play. So it's actually coming in handy for me doing this cosplay runway, Cosmoda, in his as an homage to him.
And you have the you still have the artwork I sent you from Vlada for that runway, right?
Oh yeah. We did. I did the cosplay in Orlando on the runway, and we used different scenarios in the back as different characters were coming out. So we used Maleficent had that as her backdrop.
Which of the two Vlada pieces?
I think it was the great photo of illustration of the house, the castle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. If you have a video of that, please send it to me to post about.
I will. I have some because we did Maleficent in a better lighting because it was a little dark on the stage, but I may want to just shoot it again. We're going down to Orlando to do another episode in July. So
cool. Yeah, keep using the Vlada black and white.
Yeah.
Jeremy says, if you need to get rid of the omnibus, I can take it off your hands.
I know. You may have to pay for the shipping.
And he asked, Jeremy asked, also, how do you feel about the polarizing politics, and do you feel they have a place in comics?
Yes.
It's kind of inevitable because Marvel is set in reality. It's not Gotham City, it's New York. We are in the world. And I just think that there is such a weird, the fact that Flag Smasher wasn't created January 7th. It was created in 1980, the late 80s. It really tells you exactly where Mark was headed with his thinking about politics and corruption and leaders and their responsibility to the public and their responsibility to the individual, because the individual mattered more than anything to Mark. That was his passion. And mine was too with the Nerve, because I thought my comedy group was called The Nerve, and it was the nerve to be yourself and to have your own individuality, and that we were losing that, and that we were becoming too politicized in terms of giving over all our power to the government. I mean, Captain America turned his uniform over to the government because he didn't like what they were doing. And, he wasn't going to be Cap anymore. He wasn't going to be a yes man. And that allowed U.S. Agent and John Walker to step in. But, he was fraught with the emotions about that all the time. And, I think it was, what was that? 30 years before, did he have a crystal ball? I don't know. I don't think they could have written that story to be more precise. And the fact that they had to go back to a dead guy and get his, his take on it was pretty shows you how relevant and how incredibly in tune with the problems of the day that just have exacerbated and become even more so. He was pushing the envelope then, but it became reality in 2020. It became reality in 2021. So that's a great point. And I don't think that they could have anyone write it better and more relevant than Mark, did when he was thinking of it in the 80s.
Nice.
Yeah. Jeremy says it was an interesting telling of the future.
Exactly, Jeremy. I don't think he had a crystal ball, but I mean, he could see where things were going to go. He was always tapped into what the current events were. I mean, he read the New York Times cover to cover every day, so he got a lot of his ideas from the headlines. And I'm thinking, maybe I mean, the Berlin Wall was coming down when he was writing Captain America. So, there were things that were, very politicized back then, and there were terrorism. Assassination happened. Attempt on Reagan. We're just getting more of what was brewing back then. So he really had his finger on the pulse then. But I'm sad to say that it has really come. And I can't believe that, Power Broker, Battlestar, all those people, those characters he created are just so, amazingly relevant to today. It's just incredible. And I love that Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think they did such a great job of it. I just really did. It just really, the Falcon, the way I watched a lot of the backstory about how they made him fly and how they filmed it, and the CGI. I mean, they didn't have that CGI. I mean, I think when Mark died, maybe Batman and Superman were the only really great movies. I mean, that Captain America thing that came out, that was a laugh. But he would bring home a little snippets of things that fans were working on, saying the CGI is going to get the special effects are going to be really great very soon. And I think he was actually studying to be a screenwriter. So he used to take me to screenwriting classes with him, and we would go to screenwriting, and that was what he was working towards. Branching off and becoming part of the movies. And he could see that the movies were going to be the next phase for him to write scripts for.
Did Mark see that Captain America movie from 1990, the really bad one?
Yeah. And it was so funny because she actually is a clothing designer now, Marla Wynn, who produced that. And when she met me, I said I was Captain America's widow, and she said, "Oh, I produced the Captain America film." And I was like, "Oh," and she said, "Yeah, that made me get out of the business."
Wow.
Ouch. With those little flappy things on his little helmet with the little wings.
That movie's not even so bad. That movie's not even so bad it's good. It's just so bad.
That's it. I mean, it's not even Mystery Science Theater 2000 or 3000 or whatever it was, laughable. It's not, it's just groanable, it's just not even watchable. So he was very, we put that under the carpet. I didn't really watch it with him. He didn't have anything good to say about it, and he said, pretty soon Cap's gonna, and he really loved what this one fan sent him for Silver Surfer. So he was on the hovercraft. It was just really great. He said it's going to be very soon that they have the special effects to match the comic books, and I just feel like you're so involved in the comic, while you're reading it, and to translate it into the movies, it's just got it sent the fan base through the roof. People who never read comic books are seeing movies, and Black Panther, I mean, it has a $200 billion, whatever. There are old black ladies who never read a comic who went to see Black Panther because it was, I think Stan did a very, very smart thing in making him one of the richest Marvel characters, one of the smartest, one of the most sophisticated. He was a black man that you could really look up to. Was kind of an amazing ability to take the reality of the business that has evolved to what it is now. I think that Stan couldn't. I mean, when I went on, they used to do these things called distributors conventions. So they use distributors retreats. So they would take the mom and pop grocery comic shops and take them to a retreat for a week, and they would wine and dine them and pay for them, and then Stan Lee would come the last day.
Cool.
And I got to hang out with Stan during those times. And, the guys were just so enamored with him, but he right back at them. He was so taken with how they took his ideas. He said, I was just writing stuff as like to entertain myself and to answer, who was it, Martin Goodman or whoever, when it was Timely Comics, or, write something that's going to, rival DC Comics. So he comes up with the Fantastic Four over the weekend. That's kind of way Stan Lee wrote. But to see these guys take it and embrace it and become have careers from it, that's got to be such an amazing feeling to go. I mean, his career, he got spat on in the 50s and 60s, before the Comic Authority came up with, the standards, and, they were considered too skimpy, and it was use decay, and he was called in the House of American Activities. I mean, he went through the entire realm of what somebody could do in their career, the highs and lows of their career. And for him, to see it become so revered and so venerated and so popular. And I think it's modern day mythology, that it really taps into. But, Mark always said, can you imagine that you would be able to work for and have as your boss somebody who you revered as a child? They're busting somebody. Excuse me. Of course, New York is always going to be New York with the sirens going off and everything. But he said, and he knew my name. He said, and Stanley knew him and would call him and have, discussions about, deep discussions with Stan Lee. It just tickled him that, he knew his name. He worked for this guy who it was his childhood hero. I can't even imagine, how satisfying that must have been for Mark. He absolutely adored Stan. And Stan even said in his tribute, that Mark was as integral as the masthead to Marvel. And that was very touching. He absolutely loved and respected Mark to the max. And that was so satisfying. So the whole thing about, a fan turned pro and having your childhood fantasy become your profession is, really what Mark was all about too. I saw storyboards he did when he was 5 years old. I mean, his father was a fan of Marvel and brought him into the fray. And really, they worked on books together. They did comic reality. They treated the Marvel universe, the DC universe, like it was reality, and it was fictional reality. And he created this magazine called Omniverse, and it was the magazine of fictional reality, and it was the headiest Buckminster Fuller stuff you ever want to read. Peter Sanderson wrote for it, Rick Bruning, Jerry Ordway. I mean, these are comic book scholars, guys. I mean, they treat this like it is just, the most sacred profession. I mean, at the same time, they're so goofy about it. It's, I loved hanging out with these comic book guys. I just really, I can't tell you. They were so clever and so sardonic and, serious and silly. And, it was just such a pleasure to hang out with those comic book guys because they knew their stuff, but, they didn't take themselves too seriously. And it was, it was a really, it was one of the best times of my life is, coming back to those times, and they all loved each other and they all had a great time working together and creating those books together. And Mark used to come up with a, amazing thing. I mean, keeping creative people on deadlines. Oh my God. And he did that so well. And he kept everybody engaged and involved, and would pull ideas and pull people into things, and had major projects that were happening at the office that everybody had to be part of. And just imagine that anarchy of like a National Lampoon office or something. That's what Marvel was like when Mark was at the helm. And he and Tom DeFalco, he didn't get along with Shooter all that well. He didn't really respect Shooter that much, although Shooter hired him as his first assistant editor. Mm-hmm. But he really resonated with Tom DeFalco. Oh, those guys as a team, talk about good cop, bad cop. They were amazing together. Just a great team. A great team. Tom would just be such a good sport about, Mark's teasings, and, they just got a kick out of each other. And even if Mark was always doing some amazing thing, like, putting a outline of a gun in Tom DeFalco's suitcase when he went through TSA. I mean, this is way before 9/11. And, he has an aluminum foil gun cutout in his bag, and they pulled him over. And Mark had pocketed in there. That's what he did. He pocketed things. So he'd pocket things, and you'd say, where the heck did this come from? So every time we went to a party, he would take a CD that he didn't want, and he'd put it in your collection. And you'd be like, Riders of the Purple Sage, where did I get this? So Mark pocketed it. That's what he called it, pocketing. It's the opposite of pickpocketing.
Catherine, is that all going to be in the book you were talking about that's coming out next year? I'm going to do something with Mike Hoskin and Peter Sanderson are working on it, and I want to kind of do the Life with Gru kind of thing through my perspective, because I wasn't a fan. I wasn't his employee. It was my my take on it, and he would bring me along everywhere. And I just was part of the Marvel family. So yeah, I think, all these stories are part of my, of my gems that people don't know about, because I was his wife, and he would tell me stuff, and it's like, now I'm telling the world, because that's, I think, it was an interesting marriage, because I totally supported him, because I know what it's like to be, like his kind of creative genius that made him so driven. If he wanted to write, I needed to entertain myself. If he needed to work on something, I needed to entertain myself. I wasn't going to be like, oh, when are you going to hang out with me and stop that silly comic book stuff? I never, ever said that. I was just, I had my own life. I had my own passions that I was working on. And you don't stand in the way of somebody like that who is, really following his inner voice and doing something so great for the fans and giving them such joy and pleasure. And I could go to the Comic Cons and I'd see lines, waiting for him to sign books and autographs. And I was amazed at, how he tampered that fame and celebrity status with his ability to just, stay very humble and stay driven and always questing for the next big thing in comics that he wanted to create. And he taught the other editors. He taught a Monday morning class every week on assistant editors class on how to write comics. Wow. And some of the people working today are products of that class. Nobody told him to do that. He wrote a manual on how to write comics. Oh. And some of the best editors and people today are working in that
in the field because of Mark's influence. And he taught a class. I mean, that's what his dad did. He was a teacher. So Mark was a natural born teacher. And, he wanted to pass the baton on. And especially with women. I mean, he encouraged Ann Nesenti, Barbara Slate, Trina Robbins, all those people who were women who were in comics. He said there weren't enough women writing in comics, and he wanted to be inspirational to them, and to find a way for women to relate to it, because there are a lot of guy fans, not too many women fans in those days. Now it's really gotten so that there are as many female fans, but he wanted to encourage women in the profession and who are going to read it and who are going to be fans to find a place and find their voice and be heard, and not just some fluffy little character that was created by some comic book guy who was a breast obsessed pencil pusher.
Right. Thomas D'Onofrio says, I love Catherine and all her stories.
Oh, Tommaso, I love you, Tommaso. Tommaso is another fan of Mark, and he and I produced the tribute for Mark in the 20th year tribute, and Tommaso is just he's kind of Mark is Mark's alter ego, and he's able to make activations and moments in the tribute come to life that were just something that I wanted to do. He made them happen. It was like he was my facilitator. So Tommaso is and that's what I love about Mark's legacy is that I am now friends with all of his fans. I wrote this article for back issue for Michael Urie, and it was called Grew the Influencer, Leaving an Indelible Mark. And I was able to write something like that because I had direct contact with his fans. The fact that Dan Hort is producing the cosplay thing with me. Dan Tenderish, I go to his 5th grade class and I dress up like this is Captain America. I have a skirt that's all T-shirts that's made from one of my designers made all these T-shirts into a skirt. And, I asked the class, how many shields am I wearing? So I have 15 shields on each one of my shoes. And so I think it's like 75 shields are on this outfit. So I think, the 5th graders are just so amazing with, how, and he has a Comic-Con, a mini Comic-Con that he does, and gets the kids into doing stories and illustrating. And, he's just such a great fan and a wonderful friend now. I love the fact that Mark left this legacy of people who inform me, inspire me, promote, and encourage my ideas.
Simply amazing. I know we are running a little on time. Drew, Chris, or Joker, did you guys have any questions for Catherine?
I could listen to her stories all day.
Catherine, wasn't there a character you said that Mark based on you?
Free Spirit. Free Spirit was kind of the female Captain America kind of character that he created in 1992 or 3. And,
that was during the armor. That was when he was like, that was the later, after in like the 400s when he was Wolf Cap and Armor Cap.
Cap Wolf, and yeah, he was doing the mashup thing. Free Spirit was the character that was a combination of me and my niece, Kathy Webster.
I have so many questions I can ask, but I'm like, no, we should only ask one. But I'm like, but I have 3, but I'm 1.
Narrow it down, Drew. Come on.
This is so hard, because I'm just like, I think Leo, I was like going to message you. I was like, I think this is the quietest I've ever been on one of our shows because I'm just like listening, and I feel all three of you here can be like, yeah, you're chatty, and I'm just like, nope, I am shutting up. She talks, I listen.
Yeah,
hail to the queen, baby. You know.
Exactly. Jim Shooter not being his favorite person to work with. Was Mike Carlin his favorite person to work with?
Definitely. He and Mike were, I mean, they were in Cheap Laughs, but, you know, Mike has a way of saying, I was Mark's best friend, but I don't know if I was Mark's. So because he just loved and adored Mark, and Mark was able to take a lot, like Jack Morelli. He was like a dock worker, you know, and take him and, you know, give him guidance and create a career, you know, like give somebody training. That's why he really did die of a broken heart, because Marvel was going through such bankruptcy, and he had to fire 25 of his friends, the same people that were on his wall in his apartment, framed on his wall. He had to fire them. And I watched him just, you know, worry. They would come to our house and he said, I don't know how they're going to pay their tuition, and I don't know how they're going to pay their mortgage. He cared so deeply about all the people he worked with. And you really can love your job too much, though. You know, there's no way to tell him not to do that. And I used to say, Mark, you know, it's out of your control, and don't try and get them work because you're going to get in trouble. And, you know, it just, I mean, Ron Perlman, you know, that whole Revlon group, all that, they were bringing, you know, friends of his in for, you know, $2 million parachute. They put Dick Rogers in, who created a colored M&M's campaign for Mars Candy. He never even read a comic. He brought him in as an advisor. You know, those are the kind of people that Ron Perlman was bringing in, and not contributing anything. And, you know, Mark was like, and then telling Mark to work on morale, you know, after doing something like that.
You mean Ike Perlmutter?
And Ron Perlman. He was the president of Revlon, and he bought Marvel, and he was the corporate lawyer.
Isn't it Ike Perlmutter? The guy who still owns Marvel today, the guy that was Donald Trump's secret shadow best friend?
Nope, it was Ronald O. Perlman, who was president of Revlon. And Revlon was owned by Marvel in those days. Marvel was owned by Revlon in those days. So it was Ronald Perlman. And, you know, he's out of it. I mean, he sold you know, he picked the bones clean. He was a corporate raider type, and you know, he knows what he did. I'm not carrying tales outside of school or anything, but yeah, and you know, Jim Shooter was instrumental. I think, you know, he was an interesting character, and I don't think that he got the kind of respect that you know, he wanted, because he was a little bit of a poser, and you know, he was one of those that would wait for everybody else to laugh and then he would laugh kind of types, because he really wasn't tuned into their humor at all. So you know, there's a lot of backstory. Like he would hover over Mark. He would come over and hover over him. You don't hover over Mark. He knows what he's doing. He knows his work. He knows what deadlines are due. And Shooter would breathe down his neck. So Mark's retaliation was to create his desk up against the wall on a platform, and so everybody had to walk across the room to get to his desk, but you couldn't stand behind him. And nobody knew where that came from, but that's exactly why, because he didn't want Shooter hovering over him and breathing down his neck. Nobody knows that except me.
Nah, secret's out. So
yeah, the secret's out.
I did have two questions, because I was, the entire time we've been talking, which has been fascinating, seriously, I was just like, what do I ask? Because Rich, you asked a great question. Chris, I mean, everything you ask is a good question. And Leo, you're doing your good job. You know, but for me, I knew very little of Mark, I have to admit. So naturally, I did my research, and it was so funny because when I was reading that he has that recollection of trivial details and things, that's the same thing my friends always say to me. And especially, it was so funny because I own a Cap replica shield that a friend of mine made. That just one day I was like, "Hey, do you want this?" And I'm like, I feel like I can't say no. And then that
is it real vibranium?
Yeah, exactly. No, I didn't. No, it's a sled. I used it last winter. You haven't lived until you've gone down a hill and then you pick up the sled and people are like, that Cap shield. I'm like, yep, found it in the ice. But so
you
I
threw that mighty shield.
Yeah, I did. Good old Rusty here. Doing great. So I had two questions. So first one is, I didn't know this, but apparently when Mark passed, that he was such a practical joker that people didn't believe he had really died. And they said something like days before he was doing like cartwheels in the office. And you've talked about how he's a humor. I mean, I'm never going to look at packing the suitcase the same now because I'm like, someone's going to put an aluminum gun
the gallows humor. Yes, the gallows humor.
The gallows humor. So the first question is, what was in your mind the most memorable prank that he pulled? So that's one. And then the second question would be, because I've loved hearing your stories. They've been fantastic. What is one of the best, like, following Mark, doing the con circuits, being in these Marvel retreats and stuff? What's one of your best stories that we don't know? That's kind of like, what's the give us a little teaser of this book that you're working on. So that's like, yeah.
Well, the first the best prank he ever pulled on me was the morning he died. I went and opened the will, and it said I wanted to be cremated and my ashes put into a comic book. And I was like, oh, that's right. I remember reading our wills at our attorneys, and I was like, yeah, I'm never going to have to do that. You can leave that in there. 3 years later, I'm like calling Marvel saying, we've got to put his ashes into a comic book. And they were like, okay. So we went up to, Elliot Brown and I drove up to Connecticut because guess what? The printing press was, the factory was up in Connecticut. It wasn't in China. So I took the ashes up there, and I found a pressman who wasn't weirded out by it. And I put like 3 or 4 scoops of glue in there and stirred it up. And, you have to make sure that it was in the ink so it wasn't too goopy. And then we put it into the ink that printed the books. And what they did first was the Christy Shield, the Marvel Universe poster. So he's actually in a poster and Squadron Supreme. So a lot of people don't know that, but I put him in a poster first, and then Marvel was like, we got to do the book. And I said, yeah, because he threw himself into his work, So they did Squadron Supreme, and that was his best-selling graphic novel. I only was able to put like enough ashes in there for 5,000 books. So that book today is like $2,995. So it's because it's so rare. And Alex Ross did the cover. He gave me the original painting he wrote to Catherine. It was just so touching that Alex Ross gave me the cover, the original artwork of Squadron Supreme. And so that's like one of the biggest pranks that he ever pulled on me posthumously. And Marvel and I conspired to make that happen. And now I created this thing because it's illegal to put any ashes into a comic book because people started getting goofy with it and putting, blood and things like that into comic books. And now it's illegal. So I created a thing called the Ashograph. So the Ashograph is me mixing his ink and ashes and stamping a commemorative piece that his nephew drew that says in his mind he ran with the superheroes, in his life he showed us what a superhero could be. And I stamped that. And then there's a Jim Lee poster that they put out for his tribute. So it's kind of a set. So, but fans like to have me stamp different things. And you know what he likes best? Those old comics, because it's ink, it's porous, and you can stamp it, and the ink sinks down into that, birdcage liner kind of paper, and the ashes rise up, and then you just spray a fixative on there. So, he loves the old comics best, and that's so ironic because that's exactly what he really loved, all those golden age comics. And what was the second question?
The second question was if you could share with us another like one of your favorite stories, traveling with Mark, going to these retreats, the cons, just being around, Marvel people and fans and whatnot. What's one of your best stories that we haven't heard tonight?
Oh, geez. Yeah. Well, when we went to the Comic Cons, it was great to be with the fans. And, one time this fan actually brought him a stack of every book he had written and wanted him to sign it. So he sat there and he autographed hundreds of comic books, and he was gonna match that one-on-one with that fan. The other story that I really love is Scott Tipton's story about how he wrote to Mark about how the arrows on Hawkman's bow and arrow archery set were not sharp enough, weren't barbed enough. So he said, I'm going to call this kid. And so he called him, and he wanted to know exactly what his complaint was. And can you imagine Mark Gruenwald calling you and asking you about the fan letter you wrote complaining? Scott, to this day, he has it in his Comics 101 book, and they became very good friends. So they always would joke about that. And there's just so many times where there are just so many great stories of I saw him with his, at those comic book conventions and just putting his heart and soul into everything. And then, the people around him, he never, ever, stopped himself with ideas, good, bad, or the ugly. He would just spew out all these ideas, and everyone would laugh and groan. And I thought that was so amazing that he would put himself up for ridicule like that with his, fellow workers, his office mates. And, it just shows you that out of 10 bad ideas, a good one will come. So you have to always not stop yourself and, keep those ideas flowing, whether it's, good or bad or whatever, just do it. And seek the counsel of other people who you respect. And, you guys, nobody knows where everybody was all into the bullpen, and so-and-so was doing the letters, and so-and-so was doing the inking. And then the next time they were doing, the coloring, and the next time, so they always changed persona. And I think that bullpen just taught me so much about how to work with your fellow workers and how to inspire them, and, be your own example of what creativity means. Because he used to have a little kanji sign, and it was chaos. And he said, out of chaos comes creativity. So you have to start with this, I don't know what I'm doing moment. And then it just evolves, and allow it to evolve. So you don't have to have it all figured out. It's progress, not perfection. And I've just learned so much about how to take my career one step at a time, and to really take ideas from everyone. And I really want to be the person I wish I had met when I first moved to New York, because of Mark, because I see what he did for so many people's careers and how he encouraged them. So that just is a general point on my part to what is the takeaway from being married to him is, I'm his legacy advocate, but every single day I'm just amazed at how I almost, run it through the Mark filter, and I am Mrs. Captain America, so I have to do the right thing. It's integrity. So David Goyer has
Leo, do we clap?
marks in a comment. Oh, that's awesome.
Is this the end? I feel like we clap. Like, do we just clap?
Yes.
This was great. Yeah, just.
Why are you clapping? I'm on the phone. Thank you, guys. Thank you for putting up with me being on the New York streets.
Catherine, I want to talk to you about the progress of the project that you're aware of in the coming weeks when I'm done with the audiobook that I have going on right now.
Awesome. You guys, you crank it out, and I so admire how everyone uses this. I just think that Mark's Remarks was an early blog. I mean, his fictional reality was his, in print on demand kind of thing. So he was and he always had the videotape going on in the office. He always documented and believed in he said he couldn't imagine not having a significant life. So he documented everything. I have all of his calendars that he wrote in every day from 1978 to 1996. So I told Chris, and Chris, you inspired me to translate those because I'm just going to, and because it's really a history of Marvel. Because on that day, this happened. Nobody knows that.
Yeah, I remember you bringing those up in the interview months ago to translate them. People would love to see that stuff.
I know, and it's as geeky as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Imagine
When we get his
calendar
episode,
every year.
when the team and I get his episode together, I'll contact you for any of the information from those calendars that we can just kind of like fit in at the last minute.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. And you inspired me to translate that into documents, so I do a little bit, at a time. And it's just amazing how, life is a series of moments, and everything that happens to you, and you write it down and you don't think it matters. And then 10 years from then, it's like, oh, that's what happened that day. Some days are more monumental than others, but you do it every day. His continuity and consistency was astounding. So yeah, thank you guys for so much for, being fans of the Gru and, keeping his memory alive. And, I think, Excelsior, we're just going onward and upward.
Excelsior.
Catherine, before we let you go, actually just a quick comment here. Tommaso says David Goyer had his fan mail answered Mark in a comic once. Mark was an inspiration to him, and he signs off, "Love you, Cat." And where do you, and he also says, "I am Gru." Where do you like people interacting with you on social media?
Probably on Instagram. I have Schuller Cat is my Instagram handle. So SCHULLERCAT. And on Facebook, the tribute to Mark Gruenwald is a fan page, a Facebook page. But they can DM me on Instagram.
Awesome. And I have those links in the show notes up above or down below, depending on where you're watching or listening to us. Catherine, it was an absolute pleasure having you this evening. Thanks, you so
guys.
much.
Thank you. Thanks so
Catherine.
much.
Have a great evening.
Yeah.
Excelsior.
Excelsior, right? Bye.
Yeah.
Do the Gru.
Do the
Gru. That was simply amazing.
She's still with us. That's great.
Oh yeah, I am. I'm turning off.
No, it's fine.
Leaving. I want to get out of this.
I can take care of it. Yep, I'll take care of it. And actually, what I'll do is, the show is brought to you by the fine people of Deadly Grounds. Here's a zombie talking about coffee.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly.
Use the front door!
Oh, they're so disgusting.
So Deadly Grounds, head on over to getdeadly.com. They have a s'mores flavored coffee right now. Actually, I heard it was sold out. My wife tried to buy it for me. So as soon as it comes in, I'm going to be getting some of that. And also, we are talking about Squadron Supreme. So this was published in 1985 through 1986, written by Mark Gruenwald, art by Bob Hall. Cover price was $1.25. So.
Leo, actually, I'm going to be taking off. I can't stick around for the review. I just wanted to stick around for Catherine.
Sounds good. Thank you so much,
Chris. Buddy.
Have a good night,
Yeah,
Chris.
Catherine will actually be the one thing I just wanted to add is that Catherine will actually be the narrator voiceover for Mark's episode of the top secret project that I'm working on with her and other people coming up in the hopefully not too distant future, but I need to get over all this Vlada stuff in order to get back to it. But yeah, she'll be actually the narrator of Mark's entire episode of the TV show.
Oh, awesome. Cool.
Well, keep us in the loop, and we'll make sure we share it.
Seriously. Yeah, that's so far down the road right now, but it just that's one episode I wanted to get banged out right away, as well as the trailer, just to start kind of shopping it around or whatever. And I'll get into more details of what the whole thing is all about when I actually have a dedicated team of people I can rely on.
Well, if you need help with anything from us, just let us know.
I will. I'll keep it under consideration. Like I said, I want to get over the Vlada hump of stuff right now because we got the audiobook launching on Kickstarter in 2 days.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Yep.
Peace out, everyone.
Hey, Chris.
And then there were 3.
Yes. Okay. So I know you love this, Drew, channeling my inner Sofia. Picture Sicily, 1985. The Gipper, Ronald Reagan, was president. The Bears beat the Patriots 46-10. The name Refrigerator Perry was a household name. We paid a ticket price of $3.55 to go to see Back to the Future, Goonies, Breakfast Club, and St. Elmo's Fire. On the boob tube, we watched Family Ties, Murder, She Wrote, Cheers, Golden Girls, and Night Court. Oh my God, Night Court is coming back. You know that?
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So if you're a kid in 1985, on Saturday morning cartoons, we watched Jim Henson's Muppet Babies, Snorks.
Sorry.
Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling.
Hey.
Mr. T, Super Friends, and Dungeons and Dragons. We paid $1.12 a gallon to drive to the record store where we picked up LPs. Remember those? For $5.97 and drooled over a newfangled thing called a Sony Walkman. Oh, and Calvin Hobbes debuted in the Sunday Funnies as well.
Yes. Sorry. Continue.
So on Squadron Supreme, on an Earth much like our own, the world's greatest superhuman champions are confronted by a society in ruins. Faced with the possibility of a new dark age for mankind, they chose the only course available to them and to take control of the world's governments themselves. Now they have 1 year in which to completely restructure human society. Can their plan succeed? Will a renegade member bring about their downfall? And what will happen to Earth's mightiest heroes find themselves becoming instead its all-power totalitarian overlords?
Totalitarian.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to, Leo, I have a question. Do you narrate things in your life the same way as you do for the show? Because I'm just imagining it like, Leo may go to the eat breakfast. Is he going to get oatmeal? Is it going to have a grapefruit? Is it going to be eggs? Are they scrambled? Over easy. Will he decide to get McDonald's breakfast? Who knows? Tune in for Tuesday morning.
You know what? I plead the fifth on that.
It's like the Super Friends announcer.
Meanwhile, at Leo Pond's house.
You know what? Yes, I do hear that in my head quite often.
You got that transition going, I just said,
Meanwhile, at the Velvet Joker's house, there is laughter abound.
Oh, that is awesome.
One time I actually was sick and my voice was super thick. And I, on my lunch break, this is when I was a substitute teacher, I just was sending voice recordings to people I knew in cosplay, and I would just do that, and I got such reactions. And especially my one friend who cosplays as B. Arthur, I said, "Meanwhile, in B. Arthur's house," he sent me a recording like, "Someone's gonna get you for that one." And I'm just like, I'm bored. I get an hour, and I'm bored. I only need 15 minutes.
Oh, that was so
Yeah.
awesome.
Keep going. Keep going.
No, that was it. That was it. That was it.
All right, go. Let's supreme it.
Yeah. So this was a crazy story.
Yeah.
It's what I love about this, and I know you guys will definitely be a lot more intellectual than I am on this, but having the heroes start out, so pure, and then to see their defects kind of like warp everything. And it's that ultimate slippery slope where, just one thing leads to the other. And ultimately, it's you live long enough to see yourself become the bad guy. It was, what's that?
No. You had to go the Dark Knight, Harvey Dent, but that's fine. That's fine. That's an easy analogy. I have so many thoughts, but Rich, since you're about to get Hyperion symbol tattooed on you, maybe you want to go first.
All right. So, you come into the beginning of the storyline, and they sort of do a little flashbacks, if you will, and about how everything just sort of fell apart, and the country is just in sad shape. Like, everything's a mess. People are going hungry. There's job issues. There's money issues.
2021?
Yeah. Kind of like every
now
here. Little foretelling of the future, but back then. And they have this idea. They're like, all right, if everything's falling apart, maybe we can come up with ideas to, solve hunger, solve crime, solve deaths, cure incurable diseases. I mean, it's a lofty goals to try to achieve. That is for sure. And just one at a time, they just start peeling off. I think the Archer might have been maybe Nuke or the Archer. It was kind of coinciding time-wise where things started to fall apart.
Yeah, it's one or two of those. I think it was more Nuke, probably, because the Golden Archer stuff didn't start falling apart till later in the series.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I don't know. I only read it once.
Yeah. Well, there was one character that Nuke, spoiler, died, but there was it Archer that left? Said, I see you guys going.
Willingly.
Yeah, I see you guys going down a bad path, and
No, that was Nighthawk.
Yes.
Yeah, Nighthawk, because he was just like, this is bullshit. Like, but I guess to segue, and then Rich, I guess you can pick up where I leave off. I just think that the thing that I loved about this is how honest it really was. Like, it's like, I feel like you could easily use this as an example of how to talk about serious human story without being preachy or tacky. This was essentially proof that utopia will never be possible because human beings are involved. We are flawed. We can't handle perfection. We always gunk it up, because the more we do to accomplish it, the more we end up sacrificing of ourselves, and you saw that. And that's what, and you see all of that. And, in the end, all they tried to do was for the betterment of mankind, but they ended up dooming it. These heroes ended up becoming the villains. And you had Nighthawk, you had, was it Aquarius, right? Aquarius?
Amphibian.
Thank you, Amphibian. Amphibian, they're like, guys, we're telling you this the whole time, but everything is up to a vote, and whoever majority votes. So there's always going to be flaws. There's always going to be ways to work around people who are warning. I mean, come on. Before in the past, people thought climate change was a myth. They're like, it's just something the hippies are making up to fuck with us. Yeah, it's not real. And here we are. I just think it was such an honest, real story. The characters, it didn't feel like they were trying to score points with demographics. This wasn't, oh, hey, here's a 12 issue story that we can stretch to 48 issues, or that we can try to condense into one issue and lose the heart in the story. It was a real story. And what's also great is that this is essentially this is Marvel's Justice League, but it's done in a way where it's an homage, but they're their own characters. Like every time I was reading them, I was like, wow, that is so Hal Jordan. That is so Superman. That's very Flash, Green Lantern, Batman, Aquaman, but they're their own characters. Like hell, even Golder Archer and Lady Lark, I was like, this is clearly Green Arrow and Black Canary. And then Gruenwald just took it to another level. And, in the beginning, it was a little hard for me to get into, but then I swear, like the second I started getting in the groove, I was on issue 6 before I knew it. And I was like, whoa, like that's awesome. Because sometimes it's like, okay, how many more issues I got to go? All right, fine. So honestly, this was such a wonderful introduction to Mark's work for me. And yeah, it was great. So that's my thoughts.
It was an interesting balance of, because there was a fair amount of like a love soap opera-y with action and intrigue and betrayal. It's like you had every ingredients to like a fun story.
Absolutely. Well, Leo, what do you think?
I thoroughly enjoyed it as well. And, reading this, I kept on thinking, as well, this is the Justice League, it's, and then doing the research on Mark Gruenwald, finding out that, like you said, this was an homage to the Justice League, and his love for, DC prompted a lot of characters in here. And, you did get, some characters hooking up and stuff, but, what I really enjoyed is when they, not just when they battled, but when they battled for a reason. It's not like, oh, you called me a name, we're going to fight. It's just like, holy crap, what you're doing is immoral, and I'm going to stand up against that. It's just not fighting for no reason whatsoever.
Right.
And just the story and the character arcs, it's just very well written. Mark did a fantastic job on it, but it's real, it's just it's these superheroes but with real problems. And
you can understand why these guys are still in the Marvel universe if this is one of the earliest stories to kind of lay down the groundwork. And we know that there have been different variations of Squadron Supreme since this.
Initially, they were Avengers. I want to say it's either 57 or 69.
Right.
But they were called the Squadron Sinister.
Yes.
But that was apparently from a different universe.
Right.
So this is the first, I guess, hero version of this. And so fleshed out, it was a lot of characters. Tom Thumb was a very interesting and complex character. He's a genius, but he always felt slighted by the rest of the crew.
They always called him names and everything too. It's just
I mean, you had the whole nuke thing. He was put in an impossible situation. It's like, I can save your parents, but I would have to betray Hyperion in order to do it. So it's like, your parents will live, but the world's Superman could die.
Yeah.
And I can't do it. And then Nuke just freaking loses it. He snaps, and then essentially Power Prism has to kill him. And it's just like, again, like we've seen members of the Justice League kill people. Like that's not crazy. I mean, come on. Wonder Woman snapping Maxwell Lord's head like a come on, that was wonderfully graphic, and it's still so shocking. Like I still think about that, but this, I just think this story is very like you, Leo, you pointed out, I think this haunts you because it's so real. This is
Right.
to me the same way I felt when I watched Chronicle. Do you guys remember that 2012 documentary movie about the teenage kids who find an alien ship and then they get superpowers?
Mhm.
And then they do the whole thing like, oh, we're going to goof off. Let's have some fun. Let's fuck with people. And then it gets dark. One of them goes bad. The other one dies. And the other one's got to fight the one who's going evil. To me, I was like, wow, this is because people always talk like, oh, if we had superpowers, we would do this, we would do that. Let's just be real here. We've talked about this in the past. If people had superpowers, it would really be more either like this or The Boys.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. And with talking about how both you guys are talking about the reality and what drew you to bringing up Nuke, when Dr. Spectrum did end up killing him, I mean, he felt horrible about it because he did not intend to kill him. And until almost the end of the comic book, he swore off violence.
Yeah, totally.
And another thing on Nuke is it's pure projection. You know, it's when he's having that conversation with Thumb. You know, it's not my fault. My parents died. It's your fault because you won't save them, even though they're dying of cancer, and he gave them the cancer. You know, it's yeah. And the cure, that was crazy.
Yeah.
How when he finally finds it, and it's just penicillin because future humans are so evolved that that's basically all they need to live forever.
And I think one of the scariest moments for me was the behavior modification thing.
Oh, that was fucked up. Yeah.
On Lady Lark, because again, like you think it's so funny because like I saw this and I thought of other comics that have referenced similar things. Like when you're talking about behavioral modification for criminals, I thought Identity Crisis. When, you know, the Justice League did that thing where they put the whammy on criminals to forget their secret identities, or when they behavior modified Dr. Light after what he did to Sue Dibney. I'm not going to say it out loud because it still haunts me. I know we have our 18 mature rating, but some things don't need to be repeated out loud, need to be read. I thought about this. I was like, it's the same kind of warning because, oh man, it's one thing if it's criminals, but this woman doesn't love me. I'm having a bad day. I'm going to dump her in the paper monitor. I'm going to make her love me. Oh, this is a little much. Can I fix her again? No, it's permanent. I'm like, damn it. This was horrible. I heard like Job from Arrested Development when he realized he can't fix her. I made a huge mistake. And I'm just like, and I was just like, God damn, like this is a heavy one. Like, you know, I don't know about you guys, like Rich, I feel like you probably agree with me, but same with Leo. Like it took me a minute. I had to like sit down and process certain issues for like 10 minutes. I was like, wow, that was fucked up.
It's a violation on multiple levels.
Exactly. Well, yeah, it wasn't even that. It's just like, because again, I feel like comics now, I feel like certain comics are really for popcorn value. It's entertainment. You know, it's just get to the next month. You know what I mean? And then there's some stories that really that it hit you. You really think about it. You really connect with. You know, I'm not saying every story needs to be Watchmen, you know, because God knows they tried. But it's just sometimes nice when you have that story and it's just so real. You connect with it and it shocks you how much it resonates with you. Mm-hmm. You know, like years later, you could just be sitting down and you'll think about that scene and you'll still feel that same awe or suspense or revulsion. And I just feel like a lot of times in modern comics, I don't get that as much. I mean, how do you guys feel about that?
I agree with you. I mean, I'm not reading a lot of super current stuff, but like I read this. Like, imagine all that emotion that you were just describing, Drew.
Yeah,
I was reading this at like 14 or 15 years old, and that's a lot for that mind. And I got to say, it held up strongly. And I think I appreciate it more now than I did as a kid.
Oh, totally.
I would say I think you're onto something because on the recent comics that I have read, except for DC, but definitely on the Marvel side, a lot of that emotion and sort of like the drama seems to be taken out of it. And we've said this before. I've said this before in the past, where like the classic comics, like from the 80s and 90s, there's definitely a lot more like relationship drama and a lot grander story. And it seems like that's definitely missing nowadays.
I think just because we're just oversaturated with so much interconnectivity, and everything is, oh, here's who fighting who, oh, what's happening now, who broke out, who has the Infinity Gauntlet, oh my God, Darkseid's back. I'm like, oh my God, guys.
Well,
like, it's too much.
Well, like I tried reading the new King in Black. Have you guys read that?
Oh yeah.
No.
I didn't realize. I was just reading the main issues. I'm like halfway through it, but it's just I didn't realize there's like a ton of crossovers for that.
Oh God, yeah. That's like on an X-Men level of crossovers.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just so crazy because it's like, for instance, like again, going back, like let's say, like for instance, you reread Infinity Gauntlet, right?
Yep.
And it's still great. Like it is so freaking dated in a lot of what it references, but it's still a fantastic story that still holds up. And I feel like certain stories now, they just still don't have that gravitas, that longevity. You know what I mean? It was, I don't want to say it's filler because again, these people work hard. These writers and artists and inkers and letterers, these guys bust their butt because not just his job, a lot of them love comics, So, but at the same time, like I'm not expecting like, Pulitzer Prize award-winning comics because comics are fantasy. There's entertainment, but sometimes like it just helps if you just write a good story, not to impress anybody. You just write it because that's the story you want to hear. If you want to write something that, like I always say, like if you're gonna write something, what's the kind of story that you would read, that you would pick up and be like, wow, this is a dope story. I'm gonna add this to my stack, And I don't know. It's just like this. I would totally recommend this to somebody as a nice kind of like get a feel for comics kind of deal. Like if you want to read something that's not really connected to anything but familiar, read Squadron Supreme.
Yeah. Just real quick, going through this, and it could just be my mind going crazy, but do you think they purposely drew Archer to look like Gruenwald? Or am I just seeing something that's not there?
Could be.
That could be.
Okay.
And speaking of, I honestly had no idea how much of a legacy he has behind in comics. Like there are so many, like I wrote them down actually. Hold on, let me find my pad. Like, and I was going to ask Catherine about it, but again, like when she just started talking, I was like, I'm shutting up. Like, I got nothing to say. Like, you talk, woman. Like, I didn't realize, one, I didn't know about the TVA thing.
Yeah.
So now, and I completely spaced on me that Owen Wilson is basically Gruenwald. And I'm like, yo, that is the best. And I don't know if you guys know this, but Owen Wilson, in getting prepared for the role, basically got like the crash course of the MCU / Marvel taught to him by Tom Hiddleston. So I was like, the Marvel world according to Loki. I was like, I would watch that show. I would so watch that.
So while you bring up your notes, just thinking. Okay,
but keep going. Sorry, keep going. Keep going.
I was just gonna say, if you think of it, back to back MCU series is Gruenwald, because we're going from U.S. Agent, which he created, to the TVA, which is going to be in Loki.
Exactly. And then first things first, speaking of that, because we've seen a lot of other Gruenwald characters, because he helped co-create Crossbones, who we last saw in Civil War.
Yep.
Right? Well, technically in a flashback, if you want to count Endgame, but we're not going to go there. We already talked about U.S. Agent. He also created Diamondback, which I was like, oh snap, that's awesome. And his goal apparently, yeah,
Cap dated her, and I think that might have been the first time a hero dated a villain.
Yeah, I think so too. And it was crazy because apparently his goal was he wanted to create villains that were specific to Cap instead of just your generic villain of the week, kind of like, like a certain speedster of a Scarlet Persuasion. Again, I always want to point out, because I feel like I cast a lot of shade against the Flash. I really did love the show. I was a fan. I just don't really like it now.
Yeah.
I just want to reiterate that to all of our fans here. I have met stars of the Flash. I used to love the show. I just think it's kind of, we need to kind of stop. The story will go on.
Yeah. I think they're going to have to stop because two main characters left.
Right. Kavanaugh and Tom Kavanaugh and Carlos Valdez. They're both leaving, and they've been there since the beginning. So you're losing Harrison Wells.
Characters. I'm sorry, I don't know the actors' names.
Cisco and Wells.
I thought Cisco was supposed to leave like 2 seasons ago.
Yeah, but he come. They come back.
So who's going to say "Run, Barry, run"?
I'm done with you.
Nobody anymore.
Nobody. We're like, stop, Barry, stop.
We'll take a break.
Although I will say this,
sit down, Barry, sit.
I'll say this, and I'm sure we guys will have talked about this Wednesday. Yeah, that Impulse suit does look great, though. Like, it's a little too late in my mind, but I'm like, God, that was a great looking costume. So in terms of longevity or legacy, actually, there was books dedicated to him. In the DC universe, there is a von Gruenwald Tower, which is funny because he only did limited DC work. So I was like, wow, that's interesting. There was a Captain America novel, I think written by Tony Isabella, where there's a lawyer that's kidnapped to also defend and kidnap Captain America in a mock trial before a militia. That's basically Gruenwald. In Richard Starking's Elephant Men, the executive director of the info agency, his appearance and everything is Gruenwald, who was his friend. So it's basing on that. Volume 4 of Nova, the new director of Project Pegasus was Dr. Gruenwald. And that's important because that in Quasar, that's how Quasar started. Or at least in the beginning, he was a SHIELD agent, and then he started work with Project Pegasus at one point. So it's all connected. And he wrote 60 issues of Quasar back in the day. The mega bands. And he was apparently, and it's funny because I would have asked Catherine about it, but we ran out of time. He was so loyal to writing his characters. Like, he wrote 60 plus issues of Quasar, almost all except one. And when he was removed from Spider-Woman after 12 issues, he was like, I'm crushed. So you got to love the loyalty. I mean, you can tell with the Squadron Supreme, like, he really loved his characters because he clearly invested in them so much, and I feel like there's a lot. I feel like certain Marvel writers really could learn from that in a certain way because, yeah, they're company products, but you're still writing them. So their voice is yours to control, And I think sometimes the best versions of characters are usually ones that have that distinction versus, here we go, it's another Batman story. Oh, the Joker got out. He killed some people. We're going to punch him and beat him and punch him and send him back to Arkham. No offense, Rich. No offense.
Hey, when we get to a certain story on my list, on my 5, it's a very great story.
Okay, listen, buddy, I believe you. Okay, we all showed our 5. We all showed our thick comic files. I phrasing, but everybody's listen. I'm looking forward to reading yours and Leo's and whatever the hell I put up. I don't remember. It was like 2 days ago. That's like a lifetime.
Yeah. We all whipped it out on the table. You know
what? Listen, don't follow my example, Rich. Don't be me. You're better than this. I know. That's the joke. That's the joke. But Can we just again talk about how great that interview was? Like, I think that just had such a profound effect. Just hearing the philosophies, like, I honestly feel like I got some new mantras to follow now. Like, how do you guys feel? Like,
I totally had a vision, like she's living in the village, having a great life, bouncing all over the place, doing fashion and cosplay, and apparently a lot of projects still involved with her ex-husband. And how long has he been gone? I did not know that. Do you guys know that?
96, yeah.
96, all right.
So it's what, 20 plus years?
24 years, yeah. It's quite a time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if he hadn't passed away, what he would be doing? He'd still be kicking it Marvel style.
Well, what's crazy also is, the condition that he passed of. Really, you're supposed to pass in your teens with that condition, actually.
Right.
And he lived until, I think he was 43. Which, obviously he was put on this, earth for a reason, and he
lived.
Yeah.
It sounds like he packed a lot of life in, according to his wife, and it sounded like he was quite a futurist.
Indeed. And I will say this, though, I gotta be honest, when she's talking about that fan who brought like all the books for him to sign, Rich, you've seen me at cons. I was like,
it's your stack.
I was like, that's so me. That's so me. That no, Leo, you don't understand. That was me.
No, Drew gets like anxiety. He's got stacks, and they're organized very carefully. For who he's gonna meet, he's like, I got the order down.
Oh my god, yeah. It's almost like the movie Heat. I've got the floor plan, the blueprint.
He's looking at his wallet. He's like, do I have enough money for this? Which one wouldn't I get signed if I don't have enough?
I hate you so much because oh my god, it's so funny. No, Leo, you understand? It's so accurate.
Yeah.
Like, I've gone through wheeling suitcases that have literally felt like I'm pulling boulders through New York Comic Con. My friend's like, "Oh, can I take that?" I was like, "If you want," and they're like, "What the hell?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's my own Thor's hammer." Like, I was like, flip it, cool, got it. And I'll do it. And I show people like the map, and even comic people are like, "You're dedicated." I'm like, that's one word for it. It's, and it's so funny because I remember one time I had this, because this is you guys know who Peter David is, obviously.
David, yes.
Yeah. And this is, do you remember when he had that heart attack? Like, it was a couple of years ago, and it was pretty serious. And I was like, oh my God, like he's one of me and my girlfriend's favorite writers. We love X Factor and Spider-Man 2099. I was like, I got to get as much sign as possible, because if he croaks tomorrow, I'm never going to fear myself. So I had like a stack that was this big. Literally, I'm measuring it by the size of this video. It was huge. And I had it for him, and he saw me with it and he was like, he just looked at me, he's like, holy shit. And he signed every one of them. He was a fucking boss. I don't do that really much anymore because I realized it's well, one, it's really expensive to do now. And two, they don't, certain people don't really appreciate that anymore. Like, there used to be a time when people would see that and were like, wow, thank you for supporting all of my work. Like, you're a real fan. You're like, you have everything. Like, and you talked to him about it. Like, I remember I did that for, on my list, Hitman, John McCrea, the artist. I showed up, I had everything, Etrigan the Demon, all of Hitman, the miniseries, all this stuff. And I showed up and I was really hesitant because I was like, is he going to sign all this? This is a lot. You know what I mean? He saw me and I was dressed as Tommy, the main character. And he was so happy. He would have signed every one of them to me. And then just because he was like, this is your stuff. Like, this, you're not selling this. I was like, I would rather shoot myself actually in the face than sell this. And I don't know. It's just things in con are changing. I was going to ask her about that, what she felt about the changes to conventions since the 80s, which, God, I would have loved to have been there. I don't know. It's just cons are different, but I feel, man, I got to be honest with you. From what she told me, Mark would have loved how big Comic-Cons got being able to meet all the fans and seeing all the costumes. You guarantee he would have been that guy who would have got a photo with every Captain America cosplayer, no matter how shoddy. Even if it was the 90s Cap, it would be like, can I get a photo to remember how awful you look? You know, I don't know. That's just true stories.
So,
Go
well,
away.
so to kind of like anchor off that story,
Please do. Give me
so
purpose.
now my history in cons, when I used to go to them back in the day, it was Star Trek conventions. You know, that was my yeah, exactly.
Yep.
You know, that was definitely my bag, and you know, that's pretty much the only cons I went to. And then, you know,
Baby.
What's that?
That's your bag, baby.
That's your bag, baby.
And you know, up until, you know, recently, within like last 7 years, I started going back to cons, and you know, really the like Rhode Island Comic Con, you didn't really see that much of people bringing that many comics until I went to Terrificon, and you know, it was I didn't realize people did that, you know, bringing stacks of books, you know, have a suitcases full, and I remember.
Yeah, we wonder. Woo. Man, it's getting warm in here. I better open a window. It is just woo. Oh,
Drew's made the trip up once or twice.
Yep, great. It's great con. One of the best. Mitch is a gentleman, a scholar, and listen. There are a few people. I'm telling you right now. I would love to read his tell-all of putting together cons, because his photos with celebrities and whatnot. That man with that hat, just wonderful.
He's gonna write a book someday. I know a few of those stories. There's some interesting stories.
Right. Oh yeah. Listen, I got to be honest with you. That is one of my favorite things. Because one of my I guess friends is he's one of the co-owners of Oh Yeah Comics. And I just swear to God, my favorite is just, I love hearing him tell stories, because he's been going to cons for like almost, I think, 20 plus years, working as like a vendor and stuff. And he's horror cons, regular cons, everything. And he is just so freaking funny with the stories he knows and tells. And that's I think my favorite thing of going to con is, I love going to a con and dressing up, meeting your heroes, but and Rich, you can back me up on this, because this is pretty great. Is that when you're it's after the con, you all find a place to eat. It's not too expensive. It's affordable. You all find a place you can put your shit, whether it's props or suitcases or your shoes, and you just sit and eat, and you're just swapping stories. Yep. That's the best. Whether it's your friends, and the best is when you see someone at the con in the restaurant. It's like, they're like us. They eat food. They go out. They don't just sit at a booth and sign our shit. They have lives. And you just don't no. You're out of the con. Don't do that. Don't be that person. You know,
when I used to go to New York Comic Con, we used to have that, but it was on the train on the way back.
Yeah.
Everybody be on the train, exhausted. You're like, what do you got? What do you got?
Yeah. Or it's I think the other favorite is when you see comic famous people and they're interacting with people who have no idea who they are. Like, I remember one time I saw Jim Starlin eating breakfast. Just, goatee, bald, glasses, wonderful. He's just eating breakfast at a hotel, and I'm just sitting there with my friend, and I'm telling her, I was like, who's? I'm like, Jim Starlin, and she was like, he's like, who? And I'm like, the guy who created Thanos. She's like, oh, I'm like, yeah. And he was talking to this woman, and she was very polite and everything, and hey Steve, he explained who he was, and she's like, oh, he's like, oh yeah, and she's like, it's like, you're Jim Starlin, like, what do you do? He said, oh, I write comics. Like, oh, what do you do? He's like, oh, I created Thanos. And she was just like, wow. But she had that face, like, she almost, like when they're like, oh, that's cool. But it's like, note to self, look up who Thanos is, But it's like a terrific con. I remember one time I saw Jerry Ordway just walking around. Jerry Ordway, artist, wonderful man. And this
Killer of Superman.
Right, Killer of Superman. man who you can wait online forever for. He talks. He's a talk sketcher, but he just took a photo of these people. Like, I guess they were like a family at the casino. I'm like, oh, and I was like, do you know who just took your photo? But I was like, no, I can't keep being this for these people. I can't be the translator of the comics, the comic elite, but it's just so funny, because again, to us, we're like, these are the pillars of our universe. Everyone else, like, this is just a dude or a lady. They work in comics. They're like, okay, cool. I work in accounting, but I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. So you guys talk.
No, it's great. You talk about, celebrities eating food. We've become
go. It's gonna be good.
You talk about, fans don't be in that way. We've over the years become pretty close to the comic book men, and
Right.
There was one time, we were chilling out, behind our booth chatting with them, and one of them comes back, they're stuck at their booth like the whole time, and one of them gets food, and it's just like he's trying to eat, and you got fans coming up trying to bug him while he's eating.
Rich, I think I've talked to you about that. I still don't get it. What is so appealing about talking to us when we're eating? Every fucking time. You're just eating mac and cheese. Can I get a photo?
Yeah.
You were ruining my cheesy goodness with the pasta. I paid $15 for this small. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
Give me 10. Go get a snack.
It can be, and that's an interesting story too as a cosplayer, because I used to talk to quite often Anthony, who was sort of the most famous Joker of all cosplayers, and at one point I was trying to be like, hey, because he was like doing this big, I'm going to do this big retirement thing, and I'm like, all right, we're going to go talk New York Comic Con. And I'm like, would you be interested in sort of like introducing me as sort of, your next protege? And we were talking about that stuff. Like, he goes, why don't you come and hang out with me at New York Comic Con for a few hours and see how you feel after that? And an hour and a half in, I was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm not interested at all. I am happy being a big, a big clown in a small pond.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because the guy never got a break. I mean, and even with a handler, of a fairly professional handler, still, you're just sitting there. It's like photo after photo, and you're sitting there for like an hour and a half, and you're like, I need to move.
No, the same thing used to happen to me because, Leo, I was fairly small potatoes cosplay wise. Like, I did some pretty big stuff, and then when I did 2015, and Rich knows this because it's pretty funny when you see in person. When I did Deadpool for the first time, nobody had ever seen that. And I could not walk 5 feet without someone taking a photo or hugging me or yelling my name and getting it wrong every time. I think one person the first day got it right. I was like, oh, it's Deadpool. And then I kept like, oh, Winnie Pool or Winnie the Deadpool. And I had to keep correcting it. And every time, because I'm a good sport, but the first time I did it, I was sick. So my voice is gone. So I'm talking like, oh, yeah. And I don't know how I did it. I must have drank like a gallon of water like every 10 feet. And yeah, it's so true. Like, it's died down a bit, but every time I do it, people lose their damn mind. It's like, you'd think that I was made of Warbler. They're like, that's amazing. I was like, that's fine. I'm dying. It's just a really hot suit because it's fall when New York Comic Con usually happens, and I was like, nope, it's summer in here. It is July 22nd. I'm roasting, but and it's just so funny thinking about that. And I gotta be honest with you, when we see cons come back, and I know they're coming back now. Or trying to, and just because they are doesn't mean we have to. I'm looking forward to seeing what new costumes, because there's been so much new stuff. Like, I'm expecting we're gonna see USA agents. We're we're definitely going to see stuff from Invincible. There's going to be Omni-Mans and all that. That's going to be awesome.
Made a Loki resurgence with the show coming out.
Oh yeah, there's going to be. Oh God, not again. I thought we were good. I'm sorry. I just remember there was one time I had this joke in my mind. I just wanted to keep asking Loki, "Are you the original one?" And I wanted to be like, and they're like, "Yes." I was like, "Okay, so if I knock you out, like the con is going to get like 25% less full, right? That's how it works. I hit you, then all your duplicates disappear. That's what Thor 1 was, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I never found someone I could actually say that, and it wasn't. Then they didn't get offended. I never actually said it out loud. I just want to point that out. But I thought about it a lot because there were so many Lokis, and I was like, "You all look the same. Get a little variety. Read a comic book." Oh, sorry. Go.
No. Steve says New York Comic Con is nice, but now it's so overcrowded. So I just go to the other cons. And also, yeah, being in a train was fun. Watching other con goers get stuff and swap stories throughout the day. I know when in cosplay, gotta stay hydrated, and I always try to keep at least a few bottles of what on me. And I have a few different armors and other outfits.
Leo, if you ever do cosplay, you're going to learn one thing, and Rich knows this as well. When you do cosplay, you really appreciate pockets. Because when you don't have pockets, everything is awful.
Yeah.
Because
it's kind of hard for me to do cosplay because I bring so much equipment with me. I normally have a backpack that I've been known to like wipe out families with as I turn around.
Oh, it's okay. My swords, and I mean this in the best, but my swords have hit so many children in the face. God, that really didn't sound right. It just like the
Just
second
real
I
quick.
said that. Yeah, no, go please.
No, this is stupid because it's it has no connection whatsoever. But did you get the reverse Deadpool joke in Squadron Supreme?
I did actually. I caught that. It took me a second. I was just like, I see you there, Gruenwald. Like, I see you. You clever pastiche.
Hopefully we're talking about the same thing. The yellow pants.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, but honestly, just back to Squadron. This was so great. I'm like, honestly, this is for me. Because I very rarely want to rate something like a 5, but this was for me was definitely a 4.75. Like this was so just wonderful. Like I feel like if I wanted to, I would, and I've sat in comic book classes, I would have this on a syllabus. I was like, this is, I wouldn't say how it's done, but this is definitely something that I feel like you should read and really get. Like, this is how you write real people, like real heroes. Like, what did you guys think?
Well, so it's 4.75 crowbars for you.
Yes, sir.
Velvet Joker.
I agree with Drew 100%. 4.75. It's so close to a 5. Maybe if parts of it weren't as dated, but yeah. It's just an incredible story, and I felt emotional talking to Catherine about it. Like my eyes were actually starting to tear up. And,
you almost cried. It was. I was like, whoa, go, put the Deadly Browns on. Let them cry. We can't let our readers see this.
Yeah, it's rare when my mouth stops working, and for a second there, I was like, blah, 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 blah. And it took me a second to compose myself, but it really touched me, and it brought me back to a time when I was much younger, and seeing her in New York City. I'm originally a Queens boy. My grandfather had a suit store on Stanton Street on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. Mm-hmm. I was like, man, just throw a piece of pizza through that camera. I need real pizza.
Rich, I'll tell you, if I can, the next time I'm in your area for a con ever, I'll see if I can bring you some New York pizza.
I know, but I'll take it. Or a 6-pack of White Castles.
Okay, I'll get the pizza.
Pizza and White Castles.
What about New Haven?
Castles on the pizza?
No, Leo,
We won't mix those.
No. Leo, listen, it's not bad. It's just not New York.
No.
New Haven is not the same. And listen, I lived in Connecticut for many, many years, and I like Connecticut pizza, but it's not the same.
No, I totally agree with him. You know, I've had pizza from all sorts of states, but sure ain't nothing like a New York slice, especially late at night at 3 a.m. White Castle is a Jersey thing. Look, I've seen Harold and Kumar. I know what happens in New Jersey with White Castle. Stephen, we know. That's why I'm deathly afraid of running into a Jaguar at 3 a.m. Okay.
I know this is totally off topic, but speaking of Pepsi, you know, we don't, not Pepsi.
Pepsi, oh.
Where did Pepsi come in?
Cheeseburger.
Yeah. Speaking of pizza, you know, this is extremely odd, but we don't get pizza that often. And there's this Greek place we like to go to. But again, totally off topic, but they make a fantastic spaghetti pizza. You guys ever have spaghetti pizza?
Go on.
That really sounds like blasphemy.
Go on.
It's a really good pizza, great sauce. And in between the bread and the cheese is spaghetti.
In between the bread and the cheese?
Yes.
Genius!
It is. It's freaking phenomenal. I just wanted to bring that up since it was just, we just had it the other day. Yeah.
Connecticut shall be spared now.
But Leo, I'm trying to bring it back. We're both 4.75
right.
crowbars. How
you
are you feeling about the Squadron Supreme?
I will give it a solid 4.5 crowbars.
Okay.
Yeah, the artwork was great. The story was great. You know, it did get a little long in the tooth for me, you know, through it. But you know, it was just a fantastic story. So yeah, I probably would have, if I didn't feel stressed to read everything before tonight, I probably would have rated it higher. But I had to rush through some stuff, and because work's been crazy lately. But
Yeah.
I did make sure I read the whole thing, and I loved it. But yeah, just 4.5.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, listen, we are now topping 2 hours again.
I know, crazy.
Yeah, we got to work on that.
And I know we had that great first hour.
Yes.
But I don't know how much people are going to keep putting up with these 2-hour episodes.
Yeah, I guess we need to figure. I feel like we got to cap it at like an hour and a half.
Yeah, exactly.
We still have people watching, so that's a good thing.
Thank you, everybody. You're great.
Thanks for hanging in, guys.
Thank you so much. We're so stupid, but we love you too. So is this where we say where we find each other?
Yep, where we find each other, and any last minute words, anything cool you're reading besides this week's episode. And yeah, so Drew.
Cool. Hi, I'm Drew. You can find me at Drew Malo on Facebook, Ghostbuster Man 1984 on Instagram. I'm a writer for Screen Rant, so look up Drew Malo Screen Rant, and you know, may help me make some money. Book I'm reading right now. I'm finally reading all of Preacher. Dear God, why? It's so great, but it's so fucked up. And don't let your dreams stay memes, kids.
Okay. Oh, wrong button. Velvet Joker.
Yes, and you can find me on Facebook as Rich Davis, or you can find me on Instagram, Velvet Joker 2021. And besides reading Squadron Supreme this week, I also read Mark Gruenwald's Contest of Champions. And it was fun to see that Peregrine almost kick Angel's ass.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Awesome. And for me, just Google Leo Pond. You find a bunch of stuff. Could be true, could be not. But more importantly, follow these awesome people, Drew and Rich. They do fantastic stuff. And, you know, I run a little thing called the Dorkening Podcast Network. Over 30 shows on the network. A lot of awesome stuff by a lot of awesome people. And, you know, other than Mark Gruenwald, I did fly through his continuity book. I forgot the name of it. It's like
the official Marvel.
Yeah.
Handbook? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And I thought that anything to do with continuity, you know, like with Star Trek, you know, I love like the encyclopedias, like all the continuity. So continuity is I love it.
Okay.
But before reading this, I read what was it, Robin #1?
Okay.
The new one.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's a good new Damien book, and yeah, that's about it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. With that, we'll catch you guys later. Bye.
Peace out. Have a great evening.
Say everybody. Bye.